Watch this video and I'll be right back so that we can discuss what you have heard and listened to. Please note every discussion, every point that this guy said so that we can begin the conversation around them. Credit belongs to this content creator and I'll be right back. Don't go nowhere.
Well, in this video, I want to address the folks of Africa, the people of Africa. And I've traveled Africa extensively over the years. I've been in many, many African countries. And I've observed a couple of things that I would like to share with you. And I think that as I'm sharing this, a lot of the things you might identify with, some of the things might offend you. And the purpose is not to offend you, really. And please don't blame it on racism or something like that. It's got nothing to do with that. But I do believe there's a couple of insights that I've gained over the years in traveling Africa, in working with a lot of people from Africa. And I want to speak about leadership. I want to speak about governance. I want to speak about politics. So here we go. When it comes to African leadership, and I do understand the tribal concept, all right? It's very different from the West. I have respect for that, and I value that highly. I think in many aspects, there are really great things that we can learn from Africa when it comes to community living, etc. Now, when it comes to politics and leadership, especially in Africa, it's as if sometimes there's a lack of moving forward and having a desire to grow, to have greater insight, understanding, and to have the best will of the people at heart. I look at a lot of governments across Africa, how many of them are involved in coups? And I know there are some external factors in that. Please, I'm not ignorant with regards to that. But in general, when I look at African leadership, I find that very often there's a lack of drive. There's a lack of real compassion for their people. And of course, we find that in the West as well. But when people come with concept, with ideas, instead of learning, instead of progressing, instead of moving forward, very often it is seen as a threat and something that needs to be resisted. And therefore, I think Africa sometimes gets stuck in a way of doing things, and you don't see a lot of progress. Now, I recently did a video about Burkina Faso and what is happening there. Tremendous progress that we're seeing in that country, but it's because there's a different approach to leadership. The new president, Ibrahim Traoré, is making great progress in building and developing his country. And I've listened to a lot of his speeches where he's talking. I've seen some of the meetings that he's meeting with international leaders, etc. And I have to say, I think there's something that a lot of African leaders can learn from this young man. Very often in Africa, you see leaders, politicians being in power for years and years and years. And very often you find that a lot of them, they don't build anything. It's almost that there's more a consumer mentality and a desire to stay in power, but it doesn't benefit the people. The thing about leadership is all about developing other people to become better, even than yourself. All right. And I see that lacking very often in African leadership. I can also understand why this is the case, because very often leaders feel threatened by upcoming people, especially the younger generations, that's got innovative ideas, that are playing around with concepts and principles, and that's got a vision that differs from the old ways. And I understand that a lot of leaders feel kind of intimidated by that or threatened by that. They're insecure about their own abilities and their achievements. And instead of being open for a new generation to rise up, they press them down, they subdue them, because they see it as a threat. That's why older leaders will often criticize the younger ones, because it's a defense mechanism to protect their own self-esteem. Another reason is a fear of change. Success often brings change and challenges to the status quo. It's just how it works. And very often leaders feel threatened by these changes. They are comfortable where they are because it seems like the system is working, but very often the system is only working for themselves. It's not benefiting the people. Make no mistake, listen, Africa is one of the richest continents in the world, but it's one of the poorest. Why? Because there's a lack of leadership. You export raw materials instead of processing it yourself. There's very often a lack in the standard of education. And listen, if the education sector is not on par or it's not doing its service, change it, all right? Education is key because knowledge is power. And as a leader, as a president, you have to invest in the upcoming generation and provide them with strong, effective education. You've got no other choice, because those children, those upcoming people, they are the doctors of tomorrow. They are the nurses of tomorrow. They are the educators of tomorrow. They are the engineers of tomorrow. They are the pilots. They are the accountants of tomorrow. And you need to invest in that. But if you have an over sense of control, you will want to keep them uneducated. Why? Because uneducated people can be easily controlled. You cannot control educated people that easily, because they can see through things. All right, they can do calculations. There's too little investment into building infrastructure, building roads, building hospitals, building schools, building things that can really take your country from this level to that level. But that takes leadership, and it takes diligence, and it takes hard work. And it means that you have to fight and stand against corruption. The problem is a lot of the leaders are corrupted. Instead of removing the red tape and propagating entrepreneurship, investing in upcoming dynamic business leaders, a lot of times leaders keep the funds for themselves, and they are afraid to let the money go towards places where there can be real effective development, because it's a threat. Corruption today is one of the greatest enemies of Africa. If Africa wants to move forward, you're going to have to root out corruption. You're going to have to say that we're going to stand on our own feet, and we're not going to live off handouts all the time. It's one of the ways that Africa remains poor, because they depend the whole time on Western handouts. And when you fail at something, you blame whether it's racism or colonialism. And I know a lot of these things plays a role. I get it. But you can't stay in the place of being the victim all the time. If you always play the victim card, if you're always in that place where you say that, oh, it's because of this thing that we failed, it's because of this, instead of looking towards yourself and saying, listen, what did we do wrong? Where did we fail? And how can we make this better? If that attitude change doesn't come, and you keep on voting for the same leaders that does nothing except keep their nation in poverty, you're going to get the same results. You will not progress. You will not move forward. Africa will always stay in poverty unless Africa can learn from their mistakes, to not do that again, to educate themselves, to grow, and to become the prosperous continent that Africa can be. Like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, 60% of the agricultural land of the world is in Africa. It's fertile. It's good. Africa's got all the resources. But what do you do with it? You export raw materials and you expect to become wealthy. It doesn't work that way. And then when funds come in, it's being kept in a small pool where only a few people benefit, but the people of the nations in Africa do not benefit from that. You keep on voting for the same leaders. You go to stadiums, these leaders fill the stadiums, and they promise vouchers or handouts, or you get a nice t-shirt, and you keep on voting for the same people that's not producing anything. You have to vote for leaders that's actually producing, all right? Where there's accountability, where there's transparency. If you keep on voting for the same people that is not building the country, you're going to stay in poverty. It's just how it works. It's all about building business, all right? Look at Africa. Look at the unemployment rate in Africa. It's terrifying. Look at South Africa, over 30% unemployment, but yet government goes and they make it difficult for businesses to be started. There's so much red tape. If you want to build the country economically, you have to think, how are we going to develop business? And you've got to make it easy for businesses to prosper. If it's hard for people to start businesses, if it's hard for people to invest, and there's so much red tape and control, you are not going to grow financially. You're going to stay on this level, and you're going to repeat the cycle over and over and over again. And that's why the people of Africa needs to stand up and to say, listen, no more. We want to educate ourselves. We're going to work hard. We're going to stop blame shifting all the time, and we're going to make it easy to start businesses. Make it easy. Don't make it hard. When it comes to government and taxation, don't tax people to death. That's the thing. It's one of the ways that government keeps control over people. That's taxing the people almost to death, that they cannot survive. And you see this in Western countries constantly, all the time. One of the greatest enemies of the people is the whole international taxation system, because people can't breathe under that. You choke people literally to death. But when businesses can start, when there's a healthy taxation system, when people feel they are motivated to grow, when they are inspired to move forward in life, and they don't feel that government is pressing us down, you will begin to transform the continent of Africa. But it takes a new mindset. It involves going to people that have done it before and to say, how did you do it? And in many instances, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the business principles, you can just copy and paste it. It is not that hard, but it's a lack of willpower very often. And there's a lot of other factors. It's a mentality that is keeping Africa back. And I can speak to other continents as well when it comes to this. It's not just Africa. But in this context, I'm speaking about Africa. I was born in Africa. I want to see Africa be successful, the same way that I would like to see other countries be successful. This is not a white-black thing. Please hear me clearly. This is about seeing the worth of individuals, of the person, of the father, the mother, the child that's in the country. And where there's a will, there is always a way. Have a worker, a production mentality. That's how you're going to transform Africa. And I'm not saying throw the culture out. There's a lot of wealth in African culture. There's a lot of beautiful things. There's a lot of things that's not as great. In the Western civilization, there's a lot of beautiful things. There's a lot of things that is not that great. You keep what is good and you get rid of unproductiveness. You get rid of the things that is hindering the country to move forward. It can be done.
We are more or less pushed out many Western countries, including US, from Niger, from Mali, from Burkina Faso, from other countries. And this will cause problems for the future if we don't act. So we are thinking about an integrated approach to step up our efforts in Africa. And especially this approach will be that we will support them in a way that they ask for, instead of bringing them good, like we did in the past. So we're working hard on that one. But the reality at the moment is we lost ground. We saw there are more and more actors active in Africa. And I mentioned already migration, but it also means that when we are not present there, that it will be more difficult to have access to raw materials.
Think about the Sahel region, one of the poorest, yes, yet fastest growing demographically. The succession of military coups will make the region more unstable for years ahead. Russia is both influencing and benefiting from the crisis, and the region has become fertile ground to the rise of terrorism. This is of direct concern for Europe, for our security and our prosperity. So we need to show the same unity of purpose towards Africa as we have shown towards Ukraine. This is a must. We need to focus on cooperation with legitimate governments and regional organizations. We need to develop a mutually beneficial partnership which focuses on common issues for Europe and Africa. And this is why, together with HRVP Borrell, we will work on a new strategic approach to take forward at the next EU-AU summit.
Sure, certainly. One of the problems of Africa is leadership. One of the problems of Africa is leadership. But that problem is also caused by them. So when someone begin to say that, oh, leadership problem, the leaders are not willing to lead, to do this, blah, blah, blah. The question is, who put those leaders there? And where things are working well, are they not trying to remove those guys that are working well? So these are the questions that I want to begin with. Who put those African leaders there? Look at Cameroon. Look at what is happening in Cameroon. Look at, I can go on and on, but I don't want to mention names of Africa, but I've just done that because that is obvious. Because I can imagine they're 91 years old, 92 years old, being the president, and recently he just won another term, and one term is 7 years or 8 years. So it's gonna be like 99 or 100 in office. This is a man that can't even speak, he can't speak articulately. So the question is, why is he winning? People say that, oh, the people loved him. People did not like him from the last election. But let me not make it about that. I'm talking about the whole of Africa. And a lot of things are happening that needs to be urgently addressed. Well, if one is addressed, will there be any solution? The real question is, will they allow Africa as a continent to pick their leaders? Will those countries be allowed without any interference from them so they can pick the leader that will work for the people, that will develop the country? Because if that does not happen, the hope of that continent, I don't know when I don't know if at all they will be liberated, because you have even leaders that are very greedy and selfish, like the guy have said. They're so greedy that when they take bad decisions. For example, someone taking loan that you know that in your lifetime you won't pay the loan because the condition is unbelievable. The interest rate is high, and you take the loan, forgetting that your children's children are going to pay the loan. And of course, it's going to hinder the growth of that country. So leaders like that, the question is, why would they make such decision? It's because they are the ones that put them there. And if they do not put them there, they give them conditions that will make them, they will compel them. These are the things that are happening. And of course, those those countries are very rich. So why are they not rich in terms of wealth? Why are they not? And you can see some of the countries, individuals, when they go to advanced countries, they do well. A good country, a good example is Nigeria as a country. An average Nigerian is very, very intelligent. Anywhere they go, they survive, they do well, even in America. But when it comes to the country as the home country, they are not. They can't produce leaders. Is that correct? No, it can't be correct. It can be correct. It is not. These are the politics that they play. And some will come and say, oh, they have bad leadership. Who created the bad leadership? That is the question I'm asking. Guys, let me know what your comment is. Because I don't want to speak what I've said. But the question is, who are the people that put those bad leaders in place? It is still them. Guys, let me not say more than I've said. This video is very short. Let the conversation begin. I want to hear your opinions, your view, and your perception in the comment section. Let the conversation begin. White folks have done a lot that we need to begin to visit and talk about, so that, let's say, peradventure, they may change. Are they really going to change? That is my question I'm leaving you guys with. I await your responses. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.